I'm just going to start off by saying that games like these old RPGs really did change my life. Every single time, and it might be a depression issue, but every time I see these and every time I scroll past them, I just get this sense of loss. Like we've just lost something. I feel like a lot of us, the community as a whole, because they had the 80s, right? And there was a bubble. There was a bubble in the market of shovelware games. Okay, and then in the 90s, everything got refined in a certain way. I mean, it's not like there still wasn't shit hitting the market, but we didn't get as much of that just pure shovelware, we're doing this for $1 kind of stuff. We got really thoughtfully crafted games. You had your Diablos, and you had all your Forgotten Realms stuff, and my personal favorite, Blood and Magic. I don't know how to put this into words for people who grew up in the era where we traded our souls for graphics. Okay? I don't know how to put this into words, but I will give you an example. There's a game called Dwarf Fortress, and it is feature-rich, roleplay heavy, like endless amount of depth, and you can't go wrong with that game. You buy that game and it sucks you in because it puts you in this world where it's like, what do you want to do? And I haven't felt that in such a long fucking time, where a game just literally said, what do you want to do? It's not on rails, it's not got fucking cutscenes, it's not got these random events that pop up at a specific point. It's like, oh, you hit level 20, okay, here's the event that pops up. We don't have any of that. We just get it says, what do you want to do? And it lets you play the fucking game, right? Now, I'm sorry I'm getting emotional, but like a lot of this pisses me off because I really do feel like as a society, there are people who genuinely love games, and we have to watch them. We have to be bystanders and watch them get fucking butchered. It is tantamount to video game genocide. That's how I feel. Because a lot of us just sit back and we say, well, what are you going to do? It's the sign of the times. Like, we genuinely traded our souls for graphics. That's what I feel like. Every time I see these highly graphical piles of shit, and then someone tells me, well, I wouldn't play an old game because the graphics are bad. And that's because they grew up in the age of the soulless graphic era, right? So you could get mad at them, but it's like, what do you want to do? That's what they grew up with. That's what they grew up with. They think the peak was like Call of Duty. They think the peak, the absolute peak in their timeline would be something, and I'm not saying that Call of Duty didn't have its peak. It had personally, Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops 3, personally, but they, it's not like there's a shooter for them to play that they'd really love in these old games. That's fair. But they grew up in an era where how they judged what the peak was digging through garbage. We've had times in the market where things have gone up and down. I would say even on PlayStation, when I asked people what their favorite game was, right? You can pretty much tell that there's this divide. There's this kind of divide where it's like, okay, here's all the bad games, here's the games that everyone loved. But slowly but surely we have these jumps in technology, Slowly but surely we have the ability to sort out, you have Steam reviews now that absolutely brutally separate which games are good and which games are bad, right? Back in the 80s, 90s, and stuff like that, we really didn't have that option. We just had maybe the rare magazine that would tell us 8 out of 10, and or 4 out of 5, stuff like that, right? We had that kind of atmosphere. But in reality, you know, I sit here and I think about how lucky I am that I was introduced the way I was to gaming. Because if I wasn't, I wouldn't have this profound kind of respect and reverence for these games. You know, it's fewer and fewer of us every day that even remember that these things existed. And I think that sucks. And I think I just feel this tremendous amount of loss, like deep inside, every time I look at one of these, because I know that there's not that many people left out there who give a shit about this stuff. And what's even worse is no one wants to make games like they made games. No one wants to say, you know, even though the graphics were cutting edge back then, because the graphics were so limited, they said, well, we actually have to make a game. You know, we have to make an actual game because the graphics are so limited. And some of these gold box games, I don't know how to explain how depth rich they are. Like, I don't know how to explain that to someone. One of my first couple of games that I got for the PC was a CD called Game Fest Forgotten Realms Classics. Okay? This had so many absolute fucking bangers on this disc. It said Baldur's Gate. This had Blood and Magic, which I today, the reason that game is my favorite game is because I played the absolute shit out of these discs. I absolutely wore these discs out. It was always in the computer. It was always ready to spin up. It was always ready to go. I beat that game probably more times than I can count. And you know what sucks is now that I'm older and I look back on it, I think, bro, I want more. It's not fair, the situation that we're put in because of copyrights, because of, you know, just how everything has gone in the gaming industry. It feels like some of us are just shit out of luck. And yes, we do get the rare Dwarf Fortress. We do. Okay? And I get it. You're like, well, why don't you just play the natural evolution? Why don't you just play Baldur's Gate 3? It's like, because there's something about it. Okay? If you grew up in the area that we grew up in, there's something about that feels very Marvel movie-esque. I don't know what the word is, okay? Because I'm not good at the words. But there's something about those newer games that just, it doesn't have that thing. Whatever that thing was, it doesn't have it. Now, I'm not saying that Baldur's Gate 3 isn't an amazing game at all. That's not what I'm saying. Because I know people get my words confused because I talk passionately about things. I think Baldur's Gate 3, fantastic game. Probably wouldn't change a thing. But the fact is, why can't we have those games that are the natural evolution, but why can't we have either remakes or people still making these classic games and not getting, you know, it's so hard for them to reach an audience, which means sometimes what'll happen is I have to dig my little heart out to find any kind of game that resembles something that I want to play. Now, this Games Fest Forgotten Realms Classics was a 2-part disc, okay? It had a disc 1 and disc 2, had a shitload of games on it. Now, I don't quite remember all the games that were on it, but let me just tell you, it was fucking chocked full of just some of the best. Like, I don't know how they did it. But it basically was just chocked full of some of the best games at the time. that they had to put on there. Now, one of the second games that I got was actually Age of Empires. So going from these Forgotten Realms games, these Goldbacks games, to something like that, Interplay, man. Going from that to Age of Empires felt so incredibly good. Age of Empires 2 is still probably one of the best RTSs that's ever existed. I remember when I got a copy of that and I beat that campaign flat out in a day. I feel like it was like a day. I did not stop. And then they released the expansions. Or I didn't know the expansions existed, but either way, I got them eventually. But man, I gotta tell you, it's like that's some of the most fun I've ever had. But when you try to recreate that on some of these newer games, I don't know. It's just, I'm not in it. I'm not in it anymore. And I know that some people say, well, don't you remember that the older games you had to make your own maps? Correct, folks. You had to have some grid paper and you would make your own maps of the dungeons that you were in so that you knew where to go. Okay? Now, I guess for some people that would be annoying, and now that we've been spoiled, it's even more annoying. But I remember doing that, enjoying it. Like, I remember doing that and felt like I was like a cartographer. I felt like I was discovering stuff. I never felt like it was robbing me of my time, but I guess today that would be considered just poor game design. Just put a map in it, right? So I don't know. I don't know if I'm just not the guy to talk about newer games, or I'm just very depressed. But either way, I just wanted to make this video to let people know, if you're ever feeling alone in the world, I love Champions of Norath. I love all of these old D&D inspired games. And I don't know, it's one of my favorite games that I've played so often was EverQuest. And I just want to tell people, if you're sitting out there feeling like you're being left behind, while that may be true, there's still a lot of us out here. I feel like there's still a lot of us out here. I just wish we could carve out a new path in the games industry. If we could carve out a new way, because even the D&D stuff that we have gotten, they tried to pull out that MMO a while back. That was arguably, I get it for the people who play it, but it was bad. It was bad. It was to capitalize on people who liked D&D so much that they'd pay any amount of money. And I totally get that. And I totally get the ironic parts of me saying how much I love these D&D games, but I don't play nearly enough D&D. But I think we kind of know how playing D&D ends up these days, okay? What ends up happening is that you'll never get a campaign done. You'll never get a character, all the way, whatever your idea for it is. You'll never complete anything in today's fast-paced world. Honestly, I do want to start having my Discord host campaigns that people actually show up to, because it's online and it's easy and it's whatever, and have people that keep track of these things. But I'm telling you, it's all I can do to remedy the situation. Now, I also understand the ironic thing of I'm a former game developer. Why don't I make these games? And, that's not out of the cards yet. I'm just, my dwarven self is getting older now, and don't have a lot of cleric left in me, and I don't know. I've done it for a long time. I think when I first started it, I really enjoyed it. I really, no one told me the limitations. So I just went out and I made games, and I was young and I was having fun. I was learning. Nowadays, it kind of feels like if I made a game, I need it to be, because I'm older now. I've got people to take care of. If I made a game, I would need it to be profitable. But quite frankly, making these kind of games isn't profitable. That's the reality. That's what sucks. And that's why that sense of loss and that sense of like we're being robbed of something comes into play, because these things are being taken away from us slowly, and the people that we can talk to about them and reminisce are slowly going away too. And it sucks to hear, but like, people get old, people die, and a lot of us are not in good health. Let's be honest. We've been playing these indoor games for quite a while, and it's taken a toll. But I don't know. I get that I could step up and I could make a game, and I've thought about it, but it's also like, could I be so arrogant as a solo or an indie dev to say that, like, oh, I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna come and I'm gonna make one that honors the spirit. Like, I don't have that kind of hubris. I don't have that kind of confidence in myself to say that, oh, I'm the guy that does it. So, at a certain point, I totally get how silly it sounds, me bitching about this, but can't really do anything about it. What I will say is, this video was mainly just me sitting here reminiscing, being the old depression, and just wanting to connect with people who might feel like, all these things are true. But we have a Discord server. Discord is a place where you can talk to people about things you love and sit in there and play older games and like just chill. We've got the Discord server down below. It's got it's a thing called All My Links, and it's gonna have Discord in there. But I don't know, guys. I don't feel like this video really solved anything. But I do feel like if I've connected with you on some level, join the community and, see where it goes from there. I think if you want to subscribe, we'll be having more of these kind of heartfelt, pity parties, and maybe you'll enjoy them.